You are 40 years old. You did everything right. You got the degrees, climbed the corporate ladder, and earned more money than your younger self ever thought possible. And somehow, on a freezing Tuesday morning, you are closer to financial panic than freedom. You stand alone in the driveway, breath clouding the raw morning air. The plastic scraper grates sharply against the frozen windshield of your 2018 silver Mazda 3. Stubborn ice resists, shattering into tiny cold crystals under your numb fingers. The odometer explicitly reads 142,000 miles. You are tired, not the kind of tired sleep fixes, but a heavy existential exhaustion living deep inside your bones. You lift your wrist. The matte black digital watch looks back at you. A deep diagonal scratch cuts directly across the LCD display, blurring the passing minutes. It's a relic from your early 20s, a cheap plastic reminder of a time when you promised yourself things would be completely different by 40. But today, the liquid crystal pixels are noticeably fading. Time is running out, and your life options are turning transparent right along with it. Why are you still flinching at the grocery register? Why does your bank account go dead silent around the 24th? Here is the invisible threat nobody warned you about: soft saving. You thought you were practicing self-care by living for the moment, spending on micro-luxuries just to get through the daily grind. In reality, you were quietly funding a system that anesthetized your true ambition while the financial clock ran completely out. It started in your early 20s. The housing market was already an unreachable fortress. Inflation wasn't a mere line on a corporate chart. It was a quiet, suffocating fog, erasing the value of your labor before you could even stack it. The traditional milestones, a home of your own, a paid-off vehicle, a stable retirement, felt like ancient fairy tales told by a generation that inherited a completely different world. You didn't give up because you were lazy. You gave up because the macroeconomic math was fundamentally broken, so you willingly chose the sedative. You embraced soft saving. If you couldn't afford a distant, mythical future, at least you could completely own the next 60 minutes. Inside the cold Mazda, you lift your left hand, your thumb instinctively grazing the deep diagonal scratch on the matte black watch. The fading liquid crystal display shows the seconds ticking away, but you look away. You look at your phone instead. You tap the screen for a $7 iced matcha. You approve a $120 premium gym membership. You swipe for the annual $100 and $200 smartphone upgrade. These weren't reckless splurges, they were tiny, defensive psychological shields. They were daily microdoses of comfort to cope with a looming, inescapable financial paralysis. While institutional megafunds were quietly acquiring 30% of all single-family homes, converting generational wealth into corporate rent rolls, you were carefully calculating if you could afford a weekend dinner. You genuinely thought you were beating the system by refusing to deny yourself. But here is the data anchor you chose to ignore. Economic research shows a staggering 73% of young adults now intentionally choose to soft save because they feel the traditional economy is dead. Furthermore, consumer metrics reveal the average worker now drops over $2,400 a year purely on invisible convenience fees and automated digital subscriptions. It feels like autonomy. It feels like modern self-care. But it is a brilliant predatory optical illusion. You are actively trading your long-term survival for short-term emotional anesthesia. The weekend arrives, but the heavy, bone-deep exhaustion refuses to leave. You are 40, caught completely exposed in the lonely middle. It's an invisible, high-altitude desert of adult life where standing still financially feels exactly like moving backward in slow motion. You have no asset shield, no real equity, no escape velocity. The social tax of soft saving is paid in quiet, agonizing installments. Last Saturday, the bill came due. It was a high school reunion dinner at a dimly lit mahogany table. Around you, old friends casually discussed real estate portfolios, index funds, and private school tuitions. You sat there like an imposter wearing a borrowed identity. As the guy to your right gestured broadly, joking about luxury interest rates, you instinctively pulled your left sleeve down. You desperately needed to hide it, that cheap matte black digital watch. Through its deep diagonal scratch, the faded liquid crystal pixels were barely legible. It was a glaring, low-res proof that while your peers were building fortresses, you were still playing with pocket change. Then, the active trigger hit. The waiter silently dropped the heavy leather bill folder in the center of the table. The atmosphere instantly pressurized. Your heart hammered violently against your ribs. Someone laughed, and you let out a hollow, half-beat late laugh to mimic them. but your palms were sweating. Beneath the mahogany edge, your thumbs were frantically scrolling under the table, calculating the exact cost of the artisanal truffle pasta and the shared bottles of Pinot Noir. You weren't measuring a meal, you were measuring survival. You were desperately running the math against a fragile checking balance, paralyzed by the terrifying vision of the card reader loudly flashing a declined notification in front of everyone. The terror of being exposed as left behind is a choking hazard. You smile, you nod, you pay the social tax with your remaining dignity, buying entry into a room you can no longer afford to stand in. The weekend fades, and you are right back where you started. It is another freezing Tuesday morning inside the cold cabin of the silver Mazda 3. You slide the key into the ignition and turn it. The engine groans, coughing weakly against the bitter winter air, violently struggling to turn over. The mechanical friction perfectly mirrors the heavy, anxious tightness residing deep inside your own chest. You look down at your left wrist one last time. The matte black digital watch is completely silent. Through that deep, diagonal scratch, the liquid crystal display has finally gone entirely blank. The pixels are dead. The numbers are gone. The visual countdown has officially hit 0, symbolizing a terrifying truth. Your youth has completely run out. In the quiet chill of the car, you finally recognize the internal engine that has truly driven your entire adult life. It wasn't ambition. It wasn't a desire for growth. It was the raw, unyielding anxiety of a childhood spent watching your parents bitterly fight over unpaid utility bills at the kitchen table. That ancient fear of lacking never actually stopped running. It kept operating silently in the background, even under the open sky of your corporate success. It was that exact childhood trauma that quietly drove you to constantly purchase short-term relief, spending money you didn't accumulate on endless, hollow micro-upgrades just to prove to the world and to yourself that you weren't behind. And now, the final invoice has arrived. You brace yourself for a massive dollar amount, but the screen shows nothing. Because this invisible receipt was never keeping track of your money. It was keeping track of your unlived life, the spontaneous vacations you kept promising you'd take next year, placed on the receipt, the compounding interest that could have bought your absolute freedom by 40, erasure. The emergency fund that was never built, transforming every flat tire and unexpected medical bill into an existential crisis instead of a temporary inconvenience. Signed for by your own hand. You didn't get robbed by a grand systemic villain. You willingly nickel and dimed yourself out of your own future autonomy, one $7 comfort at a time. The Mazda's engine finally catches, its low, steady hum filling the dark cabin. The heater blows a faint stream of warm air against your numb hands. You are 40 years old, completely free to keep driving to a job you cannot afford to quit, trapped inside a prison you meticulously funded yourself. But this video isn't a funeral. It's an awakening. The exact moment you stop looking at your small daily choices as mere spending and start seeing them as the literal trading away of your future freedom, the illusion completely shatters. You cannot fix a leak you refuse to acknowledge. But once that leak is made visible, funding it becomes an active, conscious choice. You don't need a massive economic revolution to reclaim your autonomy. You simply need to stop buying an expensive version of yourself that doesn't actually exist yet, just to impress a world that isn't even paying attention. The next time your thumb hovers over that app screen, or you reach for your card to purchase another temporary dose of anesthesia, just stop. Look closely at the scratch on your own timeline. Explicitly ask yourself if that short-term comfort is truly worth another week, another month, or another year of being trapped inside the lonely middle. The receipt is still running. It always will be. But for the first time in your adult life, you are the one holding the pen. If this reality check forced you to finally see your own invisible leaks, leave a comment below with the one change you are making today. Subscribe to Wealth Echo. Let's stop pretending and start building in silence.